So today we're looking at custom dashboards, and it's really an opportunity for you to understand more about the reporting functionality that we launched a few weeks ago. In addition to these new dashboards, we did unlock unlimited advanced analytics on the premium plan and the reporting filters on essential. So this update did bring a lot of extra value to reporting across the board. And for that reason, we're going to take a little bit of time to go over what you can accomplish in the reporting module with all these pieces in tandem. My name is Colin Strachan. I work in product marketing at MaintainX. I do have a few great minds with me today in the chat. One of our co-founders, Nick Haas, and also our customer support leader, Nick Sankar, two veterans of MaintainX who will be familiar to some of you, I'm sure. So for those of you who are not so familiar with MaintainX, we've been in this business for around 5 years now. We are growing extremely quickly, innovating rapidly in the space of work order and asset management. Our mission is really to transform the way frontline teams manage the equipment and facilities that power our world. And we do this by building specifically for today's mobile workers. Obviously, the way that people work and communicate digitally is rapidly evolving, and staying on top of these developments is really what we are doing for you. And it means that we're helping organizations to move on from not just paper-based processes, but also the challenges of legacy software that we all know so well. We're extremely proud of the companies that we work with, which include manufacturers, facilities, distribution centers, many more across so many industries. And we're also super proud of how highly rated we continue to be by our customers. And I have to say, thank you again to everyone who's taken some time to leave us a review online. We really couldn't have done this without you. And the partnerships that we've established with you guys is really what makes this journey so enjoyable for us. So how we stay at the forefront is really through these three main pillars. I mentioned that we want to empower frontline workers, the people who keep things running and who really make or break the success of any digital transformation. And we do that by making it as easy as possible for maintenance, safety, operations, quality teams to do their jobs. We also want to provide deeper insights into the way your teams work, the condition of your assets, the health of your inventories. Because we know that the better you understand the performance of your operation, the more you can do to improve it. And then finally, providing smart workflows. So streamlining your processes, eliminating wastefulness so that you can get more done, essentially. And that means automation. It means integrating with other systems and connecting your technology in a way that unlocks more value from it. So I'm going to do a few things in this webinar. I'm going to run through, first of all, the benefits of being a data-driven organization, give you a kind of a roadmap for getting there. I'm going to introduce the new functionality that we launched a few weeks ago. I'll give a few concrete examples of how you can actually use custom dashboards to extract insights. And then we will do a quick live demo towards the end. And like I said, we'll get to the Q&A after that point. So why data-driven? It's clear to us that becoming data-driven is an ambition of pretty much all the companies that we work with. And at the end of the day, the ability to collect and work with data is one of the most important aspects of using a tool like MaintainX. Of course, establishing a culture that's truly data-driven doesn't come without challenges, but I'm going to explain why it's really worthwhile investing in analytics. So the reason that we've invested in building out our reporting capabilities is that the value to you as an operational leader is huge. Probably the most obvious benefit is the ability to drive down costs. Obviously, we're living in a period of time where it's more important than ever to be efficient with our resources, with our time, and data shows us where there are opportunities to reduce spend. And that might be through changing where you devote your team's time. It might be through making more calculated budget decisions. But you can't make those decisions without seeing where your resources are going. And while optimizing your use of resources is the real bottom line benefit of data-driven insights, there are also many other ways in which they can strengthen your operation. First of all, having a data-driven culture fosters accountability and transparency. And that's because when data is made available to everyone in the organization, decisions are made openly, transparently, and people are more accountable for them. We've actually got clients who make reporting dashboards visible on a monitor in high traffic areas of their warehouses. And what it does is it keeps teams connected and engaged with the progress that the team is making. And as you know, usually when people are more engaged, they do better work, right? For you as a manager, being data-driven also strengthens your leadership, right? Because, firstly, you're able to bring insights to the plant manager or to company leadership that help you to make a business case for the things you need. But it also increases trust within your team because they can see that what you're asking them to do is rooted in some kind of science. Leading often requires navigating the unknown and bringing other people with you, right? And data kind of becomes your senses. It kind of illuminates that path ahead for you. Productivity is something that can also be unlocked when you can see where inefficiencies exist. And then I wanted to mention innovation as well, because without data-driven insights, you're really just doing what you've always done. You're not seeing things through a different lens. And so to have the data there kind of challenging the status quo, you now have more confidence to try new things that can really make a difference to the way that your team operates. While before, you might have suspected that there was a better way of doing things, but you didn't necessarily have the confidence to make those changes. There are many studies that show correlation between data maturity and the performance of a business, and how leveraging data points can have an impact on maintenance costs, on productivity, and ultimately on profit. And of course, the reason that we talk about continuous improvement is that becoming data-driven is not the end game, right? It's a continuous evolving process that starts with understanding where you are now, being able to set goals that make sense, and then being able to access meaningful insights about work performance and the health of your assets that allow you to make calculated plans to improve over time. Do you know how frequently your physical assets are breaking down? Do you know how many PMs you ran on them this year versus last year? When you have that information, you can start to build effective plans and iterate over this process and just keep getting more and more efficient. Now, obviously that looks neat and tidy, but the reality is that many maintenance facilities managers find data difficult to work with. A recent study showed that more than a third of maintenance managers said it's harder to work with data than it was 5 years ago. And how they described it in the study is that data is essentially the most underutilized resource at your disposal. It's there, but it's not always easy to know what it's telling you. And that can be because it's just not clear how you're supposed to access information, like which machines are costing you the most in repairs, or which individuals or teams are the least effective at completing PMs. Maybe you can pull that information together, but you're just not confident in what it's showing you. We also know that many of you spend a lot of time creating reports for stakeholders, and that often involves manipulating data in spreadsheets, creating pivot tables, twisting metrics into terminology that your manager is going to understand. And even if you do have tools for analyzing maintenance data, often they're not easy to use and you end up resorting to spreadsheets anyway, because spinning up a dashboard that tells a clear story just takes too much time. And so to bring it back to that roadmap, when you can't access insights easily, it just kind of breaks that process, right? Now you can't confidently act on the data. In some cases, you just never really feel like you have a good understanding of the lay of the land. So before we move on, I'm just curious to know from those of you watching, what would you say your biggest challenge is with using data at the moment? Is it that you can't access the insights that you need, or is it more about the time it's taking you to pull them up? Okay, so let's talk about what's now available to you then to help you access these insights faster. At the end of February, we launched custom dashboards, and these essentially make it easier and faster for you to access insights. Custom dashboard is basically an alternative curation of graphs to the one that's currently fixed to the reporting summary screen, with the ability now to filter each graph in order to compare across dimensions on a single screen. So the first huge benefit is that you can save time accessing insights that you check regularly and you might have to report on for others. Different people at your organization probably have different things they want to check. And now you can just create a dashboard to satisfy that need and pull it up anytime you want. You can also set up side-by-side comparisons that allow you to quickly highlight areas to improve. So for example, you could have multiple created versus completed charts side by side, and you could filter each one differently to compare work completion by team or by location. You might just want to see time and cost for a few critical assets so that you can quickly see what's costing you the most. You can set up a dashboard for that too. And obviously what this replaces is having to set up those comparisons in external platforms, which we know a lot of our customers were doing. And ultimately the benefit to you is that these types of insights drive operational excellence by making it easy to see where you can rethink the way you're scheduling work or applying budget. So as with everything in MaintainX, it's designed to be super easy to use. Creating a dashboard starts with just hovering over a graph on the summary screen and hitting add to dashboard. You can then give the dashboard a name and it's going to be created instantly. This third step here is where you can really go deeper with the customization. Like I said, you can now filter each graph on a dashboard instead of just applying the same global filters to each graph. And that means you can start to pull out comparative insights across teams, across locations, time ranges. And so there's now a new filter icon in the top right of each graph in the custom dashboard, and you can now use that icon to apply card level filtering, which is something that I'll give you an example of shortly. And then it goes without saying maybe, but you can save these dashboards to a list so that they're really easy to access. We've added a new tab in the reporting section, where each of your custom dashboards live. And then they can be really easily pulled up again from there based on the title or the name that you gave to it. And so the process is basically to curate, compare, and then save. So, you might just want to use custom dashboards to kind of remove noise from the summary screen. You could pick just the graphs you want to see, leave off the ones you don't want to see. And then you can title each graph with something that's more relevant to your team and basically allows you to present data in the terms that people want to hear. But the comparison is where it gets more powerful because, you can now have a dashboard full of the same data card if you wanted, but you could have it filtered in different ways, right? So you can see how trends change across different teams or work order categories, which is something we're going to talk about, or whatever it is that you want to see. And then, like I said, the ability to pull up these specific insights whenever you need to check them is something that really appeals to our customers, because it takes into account the fact that maintenance is fast-paced. It's extremely useful to be able to access these predetermined things that you're already trying to check, as quickly as you can. So let's look then at how this can actually be used. What I want to do here is just give a few examples that'll hopefully inspire you to create some really impactful custom dashboards. And forgive me if the titles here are a little bit small, but I can explain what we've got going on here. So what we've got here, our goal here is to increase PM compliance across the board. And here we're looking at two different teams, right? We've got the electrical team and the mechanics team. What I'm doing in this dashboard is I'm using two reports, created versus completed for repeatable work orders, and on time versus overdue. And I've created a custom dashboard here that shows how these metrics compare between both of the teams. So, you're no longer flipping back and forward with the filters. You've got everything you need to see, on a single screen, a single dashboard. What I'm seeing from this graph in the top left is that the electrical team is less effective at completing scheduled maintenance than the mechanics team, which is in the top right. Now, if the on-time versus overdue for repeatable work orders was showing a significant difference also, then we might conclude that we need to investigate if the electrical team is lagging behind because they're not trained so well, or they're not following procedures well enough and they're slower getting the job done. Because what we're seeing here is that the reactive versus the repeatable on-time versus overdue is similar, we might suspect that some PMs are being skipped. If this is the case, then there might be a labor capacity issue within that team. And obviously it's not as simple as just going and hiring someone to plug that gap. But you might decide, that you need, say, a third-party contractor to cover the ground for certain assets. Or you might at least investigate which work orders are being skipped and make sure that the team is prioritizing properly to ensure that the most critical assets are being covered. And I use this example because it's important to obviously periodically evaluate if your PM tasks are still necessary and still up to date as well. Some PM tasks might become redundant because of new equipment, better parts, better ways of working, and so on. And so when a task isn't relevant at all anymore, your team might just skip it altogether. And that can also cause you to end up with a lower PM compliance. Another example would be this, comparing the costs of a critical asset over different time periods to identify rising costs and potentially the reasons for those rising costs. So here we're looking at an air compressor, and we're seeing that it costs 4 times the amount it did at the same quarter of the previous year. And now this comparison, how I set this up is it's set up quite simply by using the time and cost report and filtering each one with the respective time period. To give us a bit more color though, what I've also done is looked at the issue types that have been tracked for this machine. And how we've done this by using the created versus completed report filtered by work order category. So the context here is that we're using work order categories to record the type of issue associated with the machine when a work order is created. And then of course we can extrapolate some root cause information when we're monitoring things in reporting. So because the machine is costing more here, and it's also recording more incidents of pressure issues, we might investigate whether these pressure issues are chronic and could require replacement. Now, again, there's not necessarily going to be budget available to buy a new machine, but it's useful to know which machines would be at the top of the pile when budget becomes available. And of course, if corporate, for example, asks you what you do with that budget, you now have some insights in your back pocket that allow you to give a quick answer, which helps to strengthen your leadership and make a case. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that we also unlocked unlimited advanced analytics on the premium plan as part of the custom dashboards release. And this is an example of a dashboard that can inform budget. And here we're looking at the cost of a single asset from one year to the next. So doing this kind of year-on-year comparison is now possible for those of you on the premium plan. And it's extremely easy to set up this type of comparison using custom dashboards. And then in this third example, here we're looking at near-miss safety incidents. So we are using work order categories again here to show only work orders that were tagged as a near-miss. And you can see that warehouse A in the top left is almost completely free of near misses for this time period. Warehouse B has a substantial number. What we've also done with this dashboard is we've displayed the reactive versus repeatable ratio for each warehouse. And so you can see that warehouse B, where the incidents have taken place, seems to have a lower ratio of PMs. So we might investigate here whether there are PMs missing for certain equipment in warehouse B that's leading to an increase in safety incidents. We might need to implement new PMs or safety inspections. It could be a training issue or people aren't doing their safety walks. But now that you've got this information, it narrows down the range of actions that you might take in trying to resolve the issue, right? And that should help you to take action faster. And again, you can see the value of using work order categories here because it gives you that extra dimension that you can use for filtering and reporting, and it really extends what you can extrapolate from a custom dashboard. So now I'm going to give you a quick demo of this functionality in action. Okay, so what you see here is the familiar looking summary screen. You'll notice that we've got the custom dashboards tab here on the right, which is new. Currently we don't have any custom dashboards in there, but if we did, that's where you would go to pull them up. So let's say, for example, we want to do an asset cost comparison here. What I can do is to create a dashboard, it's really as simple as clicking on the graph that I want, hovering over it here, clicking add to dashboard, and now I can give this dashboard a title. So let's say I want to say asset costs, let's say critical asset costs, comparing the costs of critical assets. Click this link here, I'm going to go straight to the dashboard. But what I can also now do is I can pull up the dashboard from here. So now what I can see is I can see this time and cost report here. What I can do is I can set an asset. I can set it to filter by assets. Let's say I want to check the cost of this air compressor here. Now I'm just seeing the cost of the air compressor. I can go last 3 months. And what I can do is I can also rename this. So now we're looking at time and cost for our air compressor. Of course, if you're going to share this dashboard with somebody, get somebody else to look at this dashboard, you're able to tell a clear story by using the titles here. Now, if I want to go side by side against another asset, it's really as simple as duplicating this graph. I can duplicate this time and cost. I'm going to set a different device here, different machine, sorry. I can edit the filters, click asset. Now I want to see the forklift. And now what I have is side by side, I have the air compressor and the forklift, and I can now rename this one. So this is your new filter icon here. This is what we added with the custom dashboards launch. You can set your date range here. You can add filters. You can pull up your filter configurations that are saved. There's also an organization filter here for those of you on the enterprise plan that are using multiple organizations. You can actually view multiple organization stats on the same dashboard here as well to get a kind of bird's eye view across the business. If we wanted to add more charts to this dashboard, so let's say we want to look at the inspection checks for each of those assets as well. If I go down here and complete with inspection check, I now see this button here, add to dashboard. And I can see the dashboards that I've got saved here. So I can see this critical asset cost that I just created. Simply click that. I can give this a name. So I'm going to do inspection check. I can't type here. For the air compressor. Go back in here, and now it's been added. And again, I can add my filters here, last 3 months. Just a quick note here, that another update that we made recently is to apply relevant date ranges here. So if you check this box, what it's going to do is that 3-month date range is now stuck to the relevant day, relative to the current day, right? So as days go by, that 3-month window moves along to stay relative with the current day. Now I can duplicate this again, and I can say I want inspection checks for the forklift. And again, hit the filter icon, select the forklift, and now I've got a comparison there as well. And remember that like you can on the summary screen, it's the same on custom dashboards. What you can do is you can drill through here. So we're seeing some failures. We can click in here. We can instantly see the failures, the work orders that were associated with those failed inspections. And we can dig in for more information about exactly what it was that failed its inspection check. And as another note here, so what I've done here is I've created a dashboard, but I haven't published it yet. If I want to make this dashboard visible to others in the organization, what I do is I hit publish changes. It tells me that the dashboard is now successfully published. And when I go back to my index here, I can now see the dashboard there. Another useful feature of the publishing is that if I start making changes to this dashboard here, let's say I filter by different asset. If I decide that the changes I made, essentially what you can do is you can protect yourself from kind of screwing up here. If you make a change on the dashboard that you want to go back and you want to go back to revert back to the one that you had saved, you can simply click this button here, discard draft back to previous version. And what it's going to do is it's going to revert the dashboard back to the one that when you last published it. And quick note as well, the graphs that you add to the dashboard, they don't have to be from the summary screen. If I go into reporting details here, if I want to let's say I want to add to the asset costs dashboard, this kind of table format list of my assets. Here I'm looking at time to complete. So I'm getting like a view of MTTR, the time spent on these assets. I can click here, add it to the dashboard instantly. And now when I go back to the dashboard, I'm seeing that table view underneath. So, you can see how easy that was to do. Immediately now I have a dashboard with 5 different charts on it. And what this allows you to do is it really allows you to curate, pick just what you want to see, not what you don't, and then tell very, very clear stories with your data, extrapolate those insights, make comparisons. And then, of course, if you need to show this data to your plant manager or anybody else at your organization, it's easy for them to see what they're looking at. So quick demo there, and that's that. Hopefully you can see how easy it was to create the dashboards here. Obviously, I know that every organization is unique. You know, you're going to have your own things that you want to check, but I hope that we've been able to inspire you today for some dashboards that you might want to create and some comparisons that you might want to make to really unlock insights and find out areas to improve. So if we have any questions, feel free to shoot, and we'll take it away. Okay, so we have a question here. Can we track multiple forklifts on a custom graph? Yes, you absolutely can. So the example I used there was a forklift. However, if you have them saved as different assets within MaintainX, you can simply, through the filtering, you can select between the two forklifts. You could have really as many as you wanted on the same graph. So yes, you can do that. Bill Lucas asks, can you export any of the reports for viewing by others who do not have MaintainX? Bill, this is something that we're looking into at the moment. I don't have a timeline on that yet, but we are looking into this functionality at the moment. Thomas K asks, can you create additional graphs like Pareto and main tags if you use them to classify root causes? If you're categorizing your work orders with root cause information, you can use those categories essentially to create graphs like that. Suzanne asks, is there a way to show the amount of work orders created in 1 week? How many work orders are closed per week? And how many of the new closed were new to the week in a graph? I think what you would want to do, Suzanne, is use a week-on-week comparison of created versus completed chart. That would give you, I think, what you're looking for there. We have a question here. Are the costs pulling from the cost of the inventory in MaintainX? So the cost graph is pulling from the inventory and from the cost of labor hours if you're providing that information inside MaintainX. Eric's asking, can you add meter usage to a custom dashboard? Currently, no, but we are developing our reporting functionality throughout the course of this year. It's something that we certainly will consider. Dashboard is accessed by administrator only, can be shown by full user. So currently our reporting module is accessible by administrators only. Is there a general issue setup guide or online training for users for setup? Maureen Fairchild, if you look on our help center, you will find instructions for how to use this feature and also a tutorial video on there. Can you Eric Duck asks, can you filter specific repair work type for work order completion efficiency? Yeah, so if you were to use the created versus completed chart, Eric, you could use, you can select work order type, reactive or repeatable with one filter. And then with alternatively, what you can also do is use the category filter. If you're categorizing your work orders with different types of work, you can then use the category filter in order to filter for efficiency for those specific types of work types. Rayhead asks, where can you build a form for weekly, monthly, quarterly inspections? If you're talking about the visualization on the dashboard, you could create inspection dashboards and use the date range filtering in order to look at them weekly, monthly, quarterly. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We're going to wrap it up here. If you do have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your account manager. And thank you again for joining. We will send the recording out to you by email in the coming days. Thank you so much.